Thanks again to all the sponsors. Thanks to all of you for coming out. You mentioned staying class, and I for some reason, when I think about that record, I think about... I think that one of the biggest evangelists for that record has been Kerry King. I remember as a kid reading interviews with Slayer where he would always be talking about that record. But I think for a lot of Priest fans, and there's a lot of landmark records that we could be here all night talking about, but I would say British Steel is certainly one of, you know, if you're trying to narrow it to 5 or 6 records to introduce Judas Priest to someone, or heavy metal for that matter.
You know, again, when you've had the grace and fortune of having such a long life in music, everything tends to kind of not blend into each other, but you really have to sit down, you know, and somebody tell you, listen to this song, and then you listen, and then you remember, you know, and that's the case with British Steel, which has become, you know, by its own merit, just the way it was in 1980. I don't know. It's just, we made that record in 30 days from start to finish. I mean, it was just, we were flying. There was a time in the 80s, as the Priest fans say, well, no, we were banging out a record a year and a world tour. How did we do that? I don't know. When I was in the band, I just can't remember how we did it, you know.
And records of that quality too, not just we're cranking out records, we're making
throwing them together. It was such an exciting time, the 80s particularly, and because America was embracing metal in such an extraordinary way, you really had to keep running. You couldn't step back. You couldn't go away for a year even. The label was like, get back out. We haven't got a song, just get back out, you know. And so we would run off to Ibiza, you know, and I don't know how. Oh, God, if I think in my drinking and drugging days, but by the grace of God I'm here, you know, because how did we do this? How did we make those records? We were smashed out of our minds like 18 hours a day, and then we go in the studio and make you got another thing coming. You know, it's just mind blowing. You know, I mean, now we're like a bunch of old guys, excluding Richie. Like, well, what do we do next? Put that note after that. No, that's a good idea. Whereas in those days, you fucking crank it up, you know. And we used to rent these like motorcycles, these Bultaco like speedway motorcycles, and it was like Ibiza in the 80s. It was hedonistic, you know. I mean, it's still a crazy place now, but my God, you know, going up the sides of mountains after drinking a bottle of vodka and dropping some acid, you know, it's just like, how did I even do that? You know, and Ian got through 12 rental cars in a week because he wanted to see how he could go through all the gears without pushing the clutch in, you know. And the guy from the rental place came up to some, I know, lend you no more cars. Oh, we need more cars. No more cars. I show you why. And he gets an envelope out, and he thought, he's bought us some Coke. And he opened it up, and all this white powder came out. He goes, these are the brakes. Ian, not the brakes, the thing that changes the gear, whatever. Yeah, it was all ground down to fine white powder, and he threw it on the kitchen table. No more cars for you. No more cars. So all of those things happened, and we made these wonderful records at the same time, you know, and so in the midst of all that was the sanity of John Lennon's former house at Tittenhurst Park. Beautiful, beautiful, stately home. And again, we were on the, you know, running. We had to make a record pretty quickly. We finished a tour. We opened up for AC/DC. And it was the last tour that Bon did, rest his soul. And we finished the AC/DC tour, and about a week later, we went into this Lennon's old studio and started to make British Steel. And again, it's just, I don't know what it's, kismet, fate, destiny, whatever, but all...
Serendipity.
All of those songs, da 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 da, that's great. We're going to use that, you know. and da 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 da. That's great. We're going to use that. It was very spontaneous, and again, I think some of the purest music comes from being instant, and again, organic, which is one of Richie Falconer's favourite word is organic. If you see him, just say, have you had anything organic today, Richie? But yes, in the true spirit of these wonderful things that happen to you as a musician, and you really can't explain why, Glenn put his fingers where he did on the guitar, or where did these lyrics come from. It's just this beautiful, free flowing type of musical experience. And I think probably out of that, if you look through the great history of rock and roll, all kinds of records kind of pop up because of those moments. It's just a beautiful, pure experience musically, and I think that was the case with British Steel. We had the fire burning around us at the time in the UK with Margaret Thatcher, and the coal miners were on strike, and the garbage men were on strike, the steel workers were on strike, we had the punk new wave movement going on. It was a real revolution going on in the UK at that time, both in people on the street, in government and in culture. A little bit like what happened in America in the 60s around the Nixon Vietnam years. This is the great thing about music. A lot of great music comes out of turbulence, and I think that was probably Priest's album, British Steel, which is just a great statement because it means so much, came to be at that time, and it's a good record. And it clocks in really quickly as well. It's about 38 minutes and change, maybe.
It's like,
It's
Rain and Blood.
bang, bang.
And well, so many great metal records are just,
But so I long for records like that now because I know we're in a different world and people tend to listen to music one track at a time. But it is very important if you do have the time to commit to listening to what your favourite band has made from the first track to the last track, because
and how it's sequenced.
Yes, the sequencing. It's telling you a story of your favourite band at that particular time in their life and your life. So right from the get-go of that first track on British Steel to the last track, is it Steeler? It's just a wonderful. When we played that live, we only played the British Steel album live in America, I believe. It was just great to play that live. It just flew by, and at the end was just like going to church. It was just ooh, it was great.
For me, growing up in America, I discovered heavy metal and Judas Priest in the 80s. I was, a kid from a working class background, broken home, the whole deal in Indiana, which was, certainly not the most progressive place to grow up. And, for me, I remember seeing, everyone makes the joke about how MTV doesn't play music videos, but I did see Judas Priest for the first time on MTV. And, and seeing you in the whole regalia, and just, it was, people use terms like mind-blowing and things like that. I think they overuse it, but in that case, my mind was blown as a kid seeing Judas Priest.
Well, a big shout out to what was MTV, because we were there right from the very beginning of the video age, and again, up until that moment, it was magazines. It really was magazines. It was radio. God bless rock and roll radio. I love radio. I always have and always will in this country. But to suddenly be able to visually have that band in your bedroom or the living room or whatever, your favourite band over and over again, not only were you able to listen to the track, but you could actually see the track and whomever it might be. And MTV were tremendously responsible for spreading that experience. I can remember going to New York City and doing some of the very first broadcasts for MTV. I was a VJ for a bit. Did you know that, Ryan?
I did not know that.
That's like a DJ, but you're a VJ, video
jockey.
DJ, VJ. And it was crazy.
You did the I Want My MTV, those promos, right?
Yeah, I did a bunch of that stuff. It was great, Martha Quinn and all the early people.
Alan Hunter. And
and there was a little tiny building in New York, and of course, You could MTV was everywhere except for New York City because they couldn't get the cable licensing to work. So to be with those guys at the kickoff was tremendously exciting, and it was a revolution, you know.
That's how a kid in Indiana was going to see and hear
Well,
Judas
that's what
Priest.
it was. You see, it took you. You didn't. I'm going to try to explain this. You know, you could see your favourite band in your town, wherever you were in America, and that was your kind of doorway, your window to hopefully seeing them perform live. You know, coming to your town. And so we had for Priest, it was a blast. I can't remember the very first video we made, but right, was that the very first one? Was it? Was it Living After Midnight? Yeah. I remember riding.
We're crowdsourcing this fact right now.
I remember. I'd be lost without you guys. I remember riding a motorcycle out for Living After Midnight outside of Sheffield City Hall, Sheffield Town Hall, for Living After Midnight. That was like the entrance to the show, and it was middle of winter. It was freezing fucking cold, but everybody stood outside because they wanted to be in the video. You know, all the fans. And then you know the story is you drive along and then you get on the stage and you join the band. So a lot of it, again, from the video storyboard point of view, was very new until you got people like Julian Temple. Julian Temple was a great innovative video guy, and we made a bunch of videos with him. The famous ones being "You've Got Nothing Coming," which we made somewhere outside of London. But so. The video experience was an extension of yourself as a band, because normally you'd be playing music, but suddenly you were an actor, you know.
I mean, I remember the Turbo Lover video was like Mad Max.
That was great.
It was like
with,
early Tool with like
Wayne Isham
and
his sidekick. Oh God, two incredible guys that really grabbed the reins of that experience and made them very much into very big cinematic things. Yeah, we made Turbo, part of Turbo Lover at the old Griffith Park Zoo. We also did Locked Inside Your Love in the bear pits, the old bear pits.
I like that song.
So yeah, a lot of fun, you know, and not really understanding the impact, because when you're in a band you don't think about that stuff, you know, you just want to have a good time and you don't know where it's going to lead you.